embrace this tradition with open hearts and mind. Let us engage constructively, listen attentively, and commit to outcome that will shape the next chapter of our nation's journey. The Gambia belongs to all of us, and it is only through dialogue, understanding, and consensus that we can truly achieve peace, progress, and prosperity. As the chair of the National Organizing Committee, I would like to begin by expressing my sincere appreciation to His Excellency, President Adama Barrow, for leading this remarkable initiative. I also extend my heartfelt thanks to all members of the Organizing Committee, particularly the Regional Dialogue team leaders, for their excellent work, and to the participants both present in this hall and the regional delegates that has participated in the regional dialogues and even moved over to Banjul to also participate here, for their valuable presence and involvement. With these words, I once again welcome you all and look forward to a fruitful deliberation. Thank you for your kind attention. Happy Independence in advance, and let's dialogue.
Thank you so much, Honorable Monke Sise, Minister of Presidential Affairs and Chief of Staff. Indeed, you've emphasized, made it loud, that our DNA is reflective of national dialogue culture we have. We are sophisticated people. Dr. Barry is here. We produced the Mandeng Carta, Kurugan Fuga. It came out of dialogue, which is captured by the UNESCO as the most sophisticated constitution in human history. It's a product of our ancestors. You made reference to the independent negotiations. Whenever there is even a moment of despair, Gambians, we've proven resilience and our capacity and ability to restore hope through dialogue. Even the aberrations of December 2016 after the election, we've proven that we can survive. We will never allow our country to descend into chaos, into a cascade of misunderstandings. Thank you so much for emphasizing that. We may have our differences, which is normal, but we already have inherited a framework of dialogue. We have our Dankuto and Ansanawiya. We can crack jokes, but we always have a disciplinary measure, a regulatory factor, which is the Dankuto. Anybody who goes against the line, the Dankuto will discipline you. So already it's about emphasizing that one, marching in solidarity. And again, Ndekete, we can build a nation. Ndekete, Sibanko Tamandinole. Thank you so much, and I would like to invite Dr. Chairman Omar Bari, Rapporteur of the National Regional Dialogue Consultations, for the summary report. Organization Region Wolof Channel 1, Mandinka Channel 2. Comme info nyame masimo ba abul ni bouton killing wala Wolof ti fulo nyom Mandinka account.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Your Excellency, the President of the Republic of the Gambia, ably represented by the Honorable Minister of Public Service, Honorable Babukar Boy, Honorable Speaker, the Lord Chief Justice, Honorable Chief of Staff and Minister of Presidential Affairs, Honorable Ministers, Honorable representatives of political parties here present, Honorable National Assembly members, service chiefs, governors, permanent secretaries, local government representatives here present, CSOs, religious and community leaders, and all other respectfully recognized ladies and gentlemen. My role is to provide you with the highlights of the regional consultation. As you have noted, last year being the inaugural national dialogue, we started with the National Dialogue Forum, and then we proceeded to conduct the regional dialogue. And because the regional dialogue is very essential to feed onto the national forum, this year we decided to begin with the regional dialogue, listen to the people at the grassroots level, to their challenges, problems, and then share that here at this forum, and it will then add to the discussion that we will do here before we finalize. But before that is done, maybe the first question we are tempted to ask is what happened after the first national dialogue? Because we did promise that there would be a follow-up on the recommendations. So with your permission, I'll give you a few highlights on some key recommendations and what transpired after that in the form of a follow-up. Key ones, because we will not be comprehensive because of time. As you will all remember, last year, we had a national dialogue on the theme, collective responsibility of preserving and safeguarding the nation and securing our national resources. And we had 6 thematic groups that were identified as key thematic groups that could possibly cover the essential issues we can start to discuss on. And I will now give you, as I said, very, very briefly, some recommendations and what happened after. The first thematic group was on the political environment. The first concern was to reintroduce the 2020 draft constitution to the National Assembly, and also to strengthen the inter-party committee, and even think of institutionalizing it, to strengthen the Independent Electoral Commission, and to encourage the National Council for Civic Education to do more awareness on the draft constitution. As all of you might have observed, efforts have been done in that regard. The draft constitution has been reviewed and has now been submitted. Presently, it is with the National Assembly to the best of our knowledge, and there is a lot of advocacy on it to be reviewed and passed. Another requirement or recommendation was gender equality, inclusive of the participation of women and people with disabilities, and to legislate gender parity at all levels. I'm happy to say that the Ministry of Gender has very recently launched its gender policy. And I'm sure for those who might want to know more details, the gender policy is available for consultation. And a third recommendation there was to develop an anti-corruption policy beginning with the reinstatement of financial declarations. I'm happy to also say that the Anti-Corruption Act has been passed, and as we speak, there is already an advertisement for members who are willing to serve as members of the Anti-Corruption Commission that is ongoing. Group 2 was on religious tolerance, individual and collective responsibility. Essentially, the core issue here is about promoting religious tolerance, and the good thing is that there is a Ministry of Religious Affairs that is very active in ensuring that a platform is open for all matters related to the diverse religious groups that we have in this country. Because religious tolerance is seen to be an essential element for peace to be sustained in the Gambia as it was and as it should be. Under ethnic diversity for national unity, 2 key issues I will highlight is the anti-discrimination that was highlighted, where zero tolerance policy that was recommended to be created so that there will be a strong stance against discrimination based on ethnicity or any other factor. And here we will all be happy to note that there are institutions that are watchdogs on ensuring that discrimination is not promoted, one of which is the National Human Rights Commission and the other CSO agencies. And then the second one is to strengthen the concept of the councils of elders for wisdom and guidance in unity and understanding, while supporting the National Council for Civic Education to carry out its mandates. And here, the National Council for Civic Education, being also part of the preparatory committee, has already confirmed to us that they have been doing advocacy across the country consistently in promoting tolerance and also consolidating on our cultural base, as mentioned by the MC. And there was also a recommendation to have the national troop that has died along the time, because they were very, very important, essential in disseminating information through drama so that people will be conscious of some of our social challenges and find resolutions for them. The fourth group on securing sovereignty, safeguarding stability and well-being, one of the issues was the government should implement all reforms. And here the draft constitution was mentioned and the commission recommendations were mentioned. And I'm sure we all know that as we've been following up, reforms are ongoing, the security sector reform, the post-TRRC commission recommendations are also ongoing. So we have a host of follow-ups to do with the Ministry of Justice on the progress, but at least we are happy to note that there's much progress going on in that regard. And then we also noted that the government needs to promote civilian engagement in providing credible information on drug-related matters. I'm happy to note also, if I give you the recommendation of the regional consultation or regional dialogue, this issue keep cropping up. But we are also happy to note that the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency have been making serious successes in curbing drug-related issues. And the other recommendation is to ensure we have community policing. And this is also being handled as we speak. We have to also commend the National Police Force for the incredible work that has been done also to help in curbing traffics of drugs. And then the fifth group, which is the media safeguarding the democratic space in the Gambia. Here we have the recommendation to expedite the repeal of draconian press laws and ensure reforms such as transforming the Gambia, the GRTS, into a public broadcaster, etc. We are happy to say that one of the greatest highlights here is the establishment of the Access to Information Commission that is already mandated to review most of the issues that have been highlighted under this group. And then the last group on irregular migration and empowerment, the recommendations were that government should improve on migration governance through community sensitization, advocacy, reorientation, and legislation, and also to create a balanced partnership with the view of increasing and strengthening bilateral cooperation on labor migration through state and community dimensions. And I'm sure we were all very conversant with the recent efforts of government in entering into agreements with countries and organizations. In particular, we know about the Spanish agreement, where Gambians have been given an opportunity to travel and do some labor and come back. And then the Saudi Arabia one that's already ongoing, and many others in the pipeline, highlighted by the Honorable Minister of Trade, who is under whose purview this is it. So as I said, many other recommendations came up. We don't have the time to go through all of them. So I will now focus on the outline or the highlights of the regional consultation. We did the regional consultation or the regional dialogue between the 3rd and the 10th of February 2025 in all the regions. And then we were able to look through what has been raised as issues, and we were able to box them into 8 categories. And I'm going to quickly give you the reviews. The 8 categories are: first, there were issues related to political environment and governance, and then under agricultural development, education and skills development, security and social cohesion, economic and infrastructure development, media and civic engagement, youth and women empowerment, healthcare, and social services. So quickly, to give just key highlights, as I said, on the political environment and governance, naturally, the constitutional review was the first point. Participants requested clarity on amendments to the 2022 draft constitution and called for increased public awareness and education on the constitutional review process. The National Assembly also was requested to be accountable. Citizens demanded regular engagements with their NAMs to enhance transparency and accountability. And for judicial reforms, recommendations were made for a more independent judiciary, enhanced legal aid for the underprivileged, and more accessible justice mechanisms. For political tolerance and unity, calls were made for decentralized community conversations to promote political tolerance and reduce misinformation in media spaces. Corruption and governance. Citizens urge strict enforcement of anti-corruption measures and improved resource management to prevent misuse of public funds. The second is agricultural development. And here, the first issue is modernization and mechanization. Farmers highlighted outdated farming equipment and requested tractors, power tillers, and modern irrigation systems to increase productivity. Market access and price regulation. Farmers lamented low government buying prices for groundnuts and called for price stabilization and fair market policies. Women in agriculture. Women requested expanded garden spaces, fencing, and water supply to support vegetable farming. Storage and processing facilities. The lack of preservation centers for groundnuts and other perishable goods was a major concern. State-owned farms. Some regions suggested this establishment of state-owned farms to provide jobs and boost food security. Climate resilience. Farmers emphasized the need for reforestation programs, sustainable farming techniques, and better management of saltwater intrusion. Now, on the education and skills development, the first cry was access to quality education. Calls were made for affordable and equitable education access, especially in rural areas. Technical and vocational training. Communities requested more technical training centers and startup capital for vocational graduates. Arabic and religious education. There were demands for equal recognition and funding for Arabic schools alongside conventional schools. Revised school calendar. Farmers suggested school holiday schedules be adjusted to allow students to assist in farming activities. University decentralization. Participants advocated for higher education institutions to be expanded beyond urban centers. Under security and social cohesion, crime and border security, residents reported increased armed robberies, cattle theft, and cross-border crimes. Law enforcement support. Security officers lacked proper equipment, uniforms, and transport. Calls were made for joint police-military patrols. Drug abuse. There were growing concerns about rising abuse, especially kush, with requests for rehabilitation centers and stricter regulations. Under economic and infrastructure development, price control and market regulation, participants raised concern over rising food prices, unfair taxation, and lack of rent control mechanisms. Roads and transportation. Poor farm to market roads hinder economic activities. Requests were made for better road infrastructure and more ferry services. Electricity expansion. Some villages remain without electricity despite expansion projects. Requests were made to improve requests were made for inclusive electrification policies. Water supply, water scarcity remains a major issue with calls for improved boreholes and piped water systems in rural areas. Media and civic education. Under media education, media and civic engagement, social media misuse, fake news, and character defamation were highlighted as major concerns. There were recommendations for more public awareness campaigns on governance, law, and political process. And communities advocated for more NCC engagement to educate citizens on their rights and responsibilities. Under youth and women empowerment, youths called for more employment initiatives, particularly in agriculture and entrepreneurship. Women entrepreneurs requested credit unions and financial aid to grow their businesses. And then stressed the need for domestic employment opportunities to curb irregular migration. Calls were made to empower women politicians and establish mentorship programs for young female leaders. And requests for sports facilities and recreational centers were raised in multiple regions. And last, healthcare and social services. Many hospitals lack adequate medical supplies, trained personnel, and ambulances was one major concern. And participants raised concern about high C-section rates and lack of qualified doctors in rural areas. And calls were made for rehabilitation centers for drug addiction and more public health awareness campaigns. And then recommendations were that included bringing more trained doctors, nurses, and specialist services to rural communities. There were key resolutions that would be shared eventually to all members in a more comprehensive report. And it will be noted that most of the recommendations were made were also responded to. As you know, government has also been doing a lot of improvement, and because the conversation needed a two-way conversation, members of the team also were able to clarify on certain issues that were not adequately communicated to the rural community. But because these are highlights, it is important that the dialogue continues around this, and we have the representatives of government who will eventually give the responses as they come up during this dialogue today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Doctor. And the report will be available as we are having an open governance system. The report will be available. Thank you, your book. Indeed, as you say, capture dialogue is about you and I doing each, as Martin Huber, philosopher of dialogue, proffered. Be mindful of time. If I stand near you, know that time is up. I know every day is the National Dialogue Day. We are just coming today here to celebrate and then to look at the steps being taken in managing expectations and in keeping the dialogue ongoing. I'm particularly impressed by the Council of Elders. We need more intergenerational dialogue. We are lucky to grow in an environment where we have the family, the elders always narrating story and preparing us. We had coming of age ceremonies going on. So having the National Troop and the Council of Elders promoting intergenerational dialogue, because I see that there is a disconnect. We talk about incivility in social media, the JOM culture. I think we need to have institute the JOM. Some of those values that are eroding. We cannot blame the young people because there is a disconnect. That aspect needs to be amplified. And thank you very much for bringing that. And then I would like to move on to the next speaker. That is Madam Mariam S. Gay, to give us an overview of the RDC. Madam, you have 5 minutes. Now I'll be announcing time, but so that we can have time for lunch.
Honorable Minister of Presidential Affairs and Chief of Staff Mahmoud K. Cisse, Honorable Minister for Public Service Administration Reform, Policy Coordination and Delivery, Mr. Babakar Boy, Honorable Chief Justice and members of the Judiciary, Honorable Cabinet Ministers, Honorable Speaker of the National Assembly, senior government officials, civil society leaders, vulnerable religious leaders, the media, Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, all protocols respectfully and duly observed. Good morning and assalamu alaikum to you all. I am here this morning to give an overview of the Regional Consultative Dialogue 2025 that was conducted from the 3rd of February to the 9th of February 2025. As part of the Gambia's 60th Independence Day celebration, the government, under the leadership of His Excellency Adama Barrow, in convening the second national dialogue, this year's dialogue, themed Diamond Jubilee, Marching in Solidarity for Self-Reliance and National Development, underscores the nation's commitment to progress. The nation's national dialogue serves as a crucial platform for diverse stakeholders, including government officials, political parties, civil society organizations, religious leaders, and the general citizenry, to engage in collaborative discussions on critical national challenges. It fosters open and inclusive dialogue aimed to building consensus, promoting reconciliation, and forging a shared vision for the nation's future. Notably, this year's national dialogue is preceded by a series of regional consultative dialogues involving regional and local authorities, as well as the general public across administrative areas and districts. These regional dialogues cumulate to the National Dialogue Forum today, February 16th, 2025. Deliberations on these regional consultative dialogues were focused mainly on two key areas. Review of previous year's recommendation, as mentioned by Dr. Cherno Omar Bari. Presentations and discussions were made on the implementation status of recommendations from the previous year's national dialogue, and discussion on key selected themes: strengthening democracy and inclusion, fostering religious tolerance for social cohesion, promoting ethnic diversity for national unity, securing sovereignty, safeguarding stability and well-being, the media, and safeguarding the democratic space, addressing irregular migration and empowering communities. Gathering commentaries, feedbacks, and recommendations were also done. Similar to last year, these regional consultative dialogues were facilitated by the National Dialogue Preparatory Committee, led by the Office of the President. The committee comprised of professionals from diverse backgrounds and institutions, both state and non-state, including the Office of the President, Supreme Islamic Council, the Christian Council, the Gambia Association of Non-Governmental Organizations, TANGO, National Council for Civic Education, Inter-Party Committee, National Youth Council, the Ministry of Gender, the Gambia Press Union, the Writers Association, and the University of the Gambia. The discussions held across the country were engaging and interactive, gathering valuable feedback and recommendations. The rapporteur will be shared shortly in a summarized version of the findings done. On that note, I would like to express my sincere gratitude for your kind attention. Thank you very much.
Wow, you deserve a prize. That's precise and fact. Thank you. We are academic. You are always going on your academic freedom, but let's, she followed the instructions. Yeah, thank you very much. Just another organizational note, and since we are having simultaneous translation or interpretation into Mandinka and Wolof, we'll appeal to the speakers, to at least slow down the commas and the full stop. There should be some breathing space to allow the technicians, or the interpreters. And it's impressive for us to have, a phalanx of accomplished personalities among us, from the legislature, the judiciary, the security services, the cabinet, regional governors, civil society, academia. This is what National Dialogue, where everybody is represented here. We have our colleagues from the Farmers Union. I'm sure you are happy when you heard about fertilizer and issue adding value, transformating agriculture, feeding ourselves as a nation. Thank you very much. And I would like to move into reflections. We have two distinguished personalities among us. The Lord Chief Justice of the Gambia, Hassan Jallow, and then the Honorable Speaker of the National Assembly, Fabakary Tombong Jatta. They'll give reflections on the theme of this year's Diamond Jubilee, to be followed by opening statement by Honorable Bukar Boy on behalf of His Excellency the President. I would like to call on Lord Chief Justice of the Gambia, Hassan B. Jallow, for reflections on the theme of the Diamond Jubilee. Welcome, Lord. No, but you have that privilege. It's called seniority privilege. You requested for more than 5 minutes, but I don't know. You have that privilege.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Moderator. Honorable Minister of the Public Service, representing His Excellency the President of the Republic, Honorable Speaker, Honorable Ministers, distinguished guests, all other protocols duly observed. The Gambia National Dialogue, initiated by His Excellency President Adama Barrow, has fortunately become an institution now in our body politic, a regular and welcome item on the national agenda of our country. When we last dialogued here in this great hall, we agreed on a number of important matters which I recall, and amongst them, that dialogue needs to be a continuous process and not a one-off event. Today's gathering is an indication of our adherence to that decision, to that commitment. We were able to identify also the core values of our community, values which we consider cannot be compromised, amongst them a commitment to the rule of law, to justice, to democracy, peace, and social and economic progress. We also committed ourselves to the management of our differences in a peaceful and lawful manner in order to maintain stability within the community and to strengthen the institutions which are involved in that process. These commitments should remain immutable and should continue to be the anchor, to be the foundation upon which to build and to remain indeed the compass for steering our great nation towards greater heights. Today's dialogue focuses on the important theme of solidarity, self-reliance, and national development. It touches on the core issue of solidarity and unity, and it comes on the eve of celebrations to mark the golden jubilee of the independence of this nation. As a high school student who stood at the Makati Square on that glorious evening of 17th February 1965, I guess I'm disclosing my age in some way. I was then in high school, and I stood at the Makati Square on that glorious evening of 17th February 65 and witnessed at midnight into 18th February 1965 the handing over of the instruments of independence by His Royal Highness the Duke of Kent to the then Prime Minister Sir Dawda Kairaba Jawara, as he then was. As a citizen also whom Allah has favored to live through all those decades of sovereignty since then, and to witness the tremendous strides and advances achieved by this country in all areas, despite some challenges and despite some setbacks, I wish on this auspicious occasion to return thanks to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the people of the Gambia on this great birthday, and to pray and to urge all of us to continue to pray and to strive for the continued peace, for the progress and prosperity of the Gambia. Distinguished guests, solidarity is an important element of nationhood. Small as our nation may be, it is nonetheless as complex, as diverse as those many states which are much bigger, which are around us. Like all these states, we feature diverse religious, tribal, racial diversity. Diversity provides challenges, but it also provides opportunities. And diversity can be seen as a wealth which, when properly tapped, enriches a nation and provides a strong springboard for peace and development. National solidarity is the glue, it is the cement which welds our diversities, our distinctions. I don't like to call them sometimes differences because there's a negative connotation. It's a glue which welds our different distinctions together. We must all be committed and continue to work towards enhancing, towards securing, and indeed advancing national solidarity, and to foster a state of oneness, a state of togetherness, a state of unity amongst all of us. Solidarity is not so much a legal concept, but it has nonetheless legal or semi-legal dimensions. I do not intend to focus much on those today. Nonetheless, a good starting point lies in the provisions of two great legal instruments, one international and the other national, but both of which have their roots in this country. First is the Banjul African Charter on Human and People's Rights, which is the premier African international instrument on human rights, in whose elaboration, whose adoption and implementation, Sir Dawda Kairaba Jawara, his team, and the people of the Gambia played a very prominent part, hence it being called officially the Banjul Charter. That charter recognizes the promotion of unity and solidarity as one of the core duties of a good citizen. And it provides at various ways, various sections, obligations of the individual, such as the duty of the individual to, and the state to recognize communities, and the duties of the individual towards his family and society, towards the state, and to other entities. It imposes also a duty on individuals to respect and consider his fellow beings without discrimination, and to maintain relations which are aimed at promoting, safeguarding, and reinforcing mutual respect and tolerance within the community, and to preserve and strengthen social and national solidarity, among other things. To preserve and strengthen positive African cultural values in our relations with other members of the society, in the spirit of tolerance, the spirit of dialogue and consultation, and in general to contribute to the moral well-being of our society. The directive principles of state policy, on the other hand, which are contained in Chapter 20 of our Constitution, recognize and reflect quite significantly these provisions of the African Charter regarding the duties of a citizen in respect of promoting and upholding national sovereignty. For instance, Section 220 of the Constitution declares that the exercise and enjoyment of rights and freedoms are inseparable from the performance of duties and obligations, and that every citizen accordingly should promote the prestige and good reputation of the country, uphold and defend the Constitution, foster unity and live harmoniously with others, respect the rights and freedoms and legitimate interests of others, and refrain from acting in a manner detrimental to the welfare of other persons. That we will serve the Gambia by working conscientiously, that we will protect and preserve public property, that we will contribute to the well-being of the community, and that we will overall be loyal to the Gambia and contribute to its defense. But it's not only individual citizens who are the object of duties and obligations. The constitutional directive principles of state policy also identify certain duties of the state, and these include the promotion of national integration and unity, national sovereignty and independence, the political objectives of democracy, respect for the rule of law and human rights, socio-economic progress, education, good health, sound and satisfactory environment, quality education and training, protection and promotion of our culture, and the care and protection of the weak and disadvantaged in our own community. These duties set out in the directive principles are not legal duties, it must be clarified, but the Constitution nonetheless at Section 211 creates a legal obligation for the executive, the legislature, and all other organs of state, quote, in taking policy decisions, in making laws, and in the administration of the Gambia, unquote, to be guided by and observe them with a view to achieving, by legislation or other means, the full realization of these principles. On our part, the directive principles also entitle the courts to have regard to these principles in the interpretation and application of any laws. Thus, these directive principles whilst not directly creating binding legal obligations, provide a very strong framework for building solidarity as a route to peace and as a route to progress within our community. It is thus important, indeed necessary, for all of us, the government, the citizens, and all organs of state to be guided by these principles in their decision-making process. Beyond this formal and temporal legal framework, we have the benefit of a diverse, great cultural heritage and our religious heritage as well, from Islam and from Christianity. Together, they share common features and values which can contribute to enhancing solidarity within our community. Love for each other, compassion for the weak and disadvantaged, respect for all, tolerance for diversity, and for those that are different. These values provide a very strong foundation for peace, for solidarity, and for progress. Al-Tabarani quotes Abu Huraira, that companion of the Holy Prophet and source of tremendous volume of hadiths, reporting the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam as saying that after belief in God, the best deed of a human being is benevolent love towards people. And that love for one another and friendship and brotherhood for one another is, after belief in God, the best way for nearness to God. Love for others what you love for yourself. Dislike for others what you dislike for yourself. Wish for others what you wish for yourself. Be concerned with and compassionate for others in their challenges and in their difficulties. Be a good neighbor. It is recorded in the Old Testament at Leviticus that amongst the 10 commandments that God gave to Moses was love thy neighbor as thyself. When, according to the New Testament, at Matthew, the lawyer asked Jesus, which was the greatest of the 10 commandments? Jesus replied, love thy neighbor as thyself. The Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam declared that a neighbor has rights over you. He said, treat well with your neighbor, you will then be a Muslim. If you treat well with your neighbor, you will then be a Muslim. He further said that the angel Gabriel was insisting always to pay the right of the neighbor so much that he, the Holy Prophet, thought that he, the neighbor, would have the right of inheritance. Let him who believes in God and the next world, the Holy Prophet said, honor his neighbor. He is not a believer from whose harms his neighbor is not safe. Fortune, he said, regarding a home occurs when the house and the heart of the occupants are spacious and its neighbor is good. But misfortune comes when the house and the hearts of its occupants are narrow and its neighbor is bad. Let us keep our homes and our hearts spacious for our neighbors, and let us be good neighbors as well. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala enjoins us to do good to our parents and relatives, but not only to them, beyond them to the orphans, to the needy, the near neighbor, the neighbor farther away, the companion by our sides, the travelers, and others. At Surat Nisa'i, we have a duty to do good to all and not to harm any, regardless of proximity, regardless of affiliation of any kind. The virtue of good neighborliness is not limited to those with whom we share home boundary fences. The world has become a global community, a global village, due to technological and other developments. The duty of care, that is of love and to refrain from harm, has expanded with the expansion of the potential repercussions and effects of our individual personal conduct. The common law recognized this situation and its implications as far back as 1952 with the seminal decision of the House of Lords of England in the case of Donegal versus Stevenson. This is a case which every law student learns, is one of the first cases you learn as a law student, and you remember it forever. Donegal had bought a bottle of ginger ale manufactured by Stevenson. Neither of them knew each other or lived near each other. There was no relationship between them, except that of a distant purchaser and consumer of a bottle of beer made by a distant manufacturer and vendor. The trouble was that the bottle of ginger, which Donegal drank, contained a dead snail. It contained a dead snail. Donegal consumed the ginger. He felt sick, or he got sickened by the presence of the dead snail in the bottle. And the question of law was whether the manufacturer of the ginger ale was liable in this regard to his distant, unknown neighbor. In answering this question, the House of Lords laid down, through the judgment of the renowned jurist Lord Atkin, legal principles of liability and responsibility, which have become the foundation of the common law of torts, and more specifically, the law relating to the negligence, the duty of care to others, the duty of care that we owe to others. In that way, the legal, if not the moral, religious dimensions of good neighborliness. The language which has remained memorable, in language which has remained memorable for all lawyers and students of the law, Lord Atkin pointed out that, quote, I can't read that one. Well, in English law, there must be, and there is, some general conception of relations giving rise to a duty of care, of which the particular cases found in the books are but instances. And he went on to say that acts or omissions which any moral code would censure cannot in a practical world be treated so as to give a right to every person injured by them to demand relief. But the rule that you are to love your neighbor becomes in law, you must not injure your neighbor. And the lawyer's question is, who is my neighbor? Receives a very restricted reply. And the rule is this: you must take reasonable care to avoid acts or omissions which you can reasonably foresee would be likely to injure your neighbor. Who then in law is my neighbor? He asked. The answer seems to be all persons who are so closely and directly affected by my act that I ought reasonably to have them in contemplation as being so affected when I'm directing my mind to the acts or omissions which are called in question. Hence, a legal duty of care and liability for any breach of it is owed to all our legal neighbors, i.e. those who can be reasonably considered as coming within the radius of our actions or omissions. A legal duty with liability, not a moral or religious responsibility. But still within the realm of the religious sphere, we must also respect all mankind. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has declared in Surat Bani Israel. Indeed, we have honored the children of Adam. This honor is equal to all the children of Adam, without any distinction as to gender, sex, race, tribe, or other distinction. The Almighty has honored us all mankind equally. Who are we then to dishonor what the Almighty has honored? This verse for all true believers should be another element in the foundation for our profound respect to others, to members of mankind, without any discrimination, and for building up solidarity within our community. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has also declared in Surat Rahman, quote, that he has set the earth for all the creatures, unquote, not just for mankind, but for all his creation, mankind, the wildlife, the flora and the fauna, and the jinn also. For all other creations, and all other creations, some of which we do not know. Mankind of different races, of different ethnic groups, of different religious groups, of different sects. Yet it is only this earth he has spread out for us, with all our differences. No other place of abode, no other place of earthly abode. The message from this verse is for us to learn to live together, despite our diversity, or with our diversity, to rise above our differences, to accommodate each other, and to respect each other, just as the Almighty has honored all of us without regard to our differences. This is a divine call to solidarity of mankind, and we must heed the call if we are to live together harmoniously and peacefully. So wherever we turn, the international legal framework, our local constitutional framework, our culture, our religion, we are fortunate to have guidance towards strengthening national solidarity through love and respect for one another, towards good neighborliness, towards respect for our diversity and for our distinctions. And as we stand on the threshold of the golden jubilee of our independence, individually and collectively, to harness these values and the virtues and to promote greater national unity and national solidarity for the maintenance of peace and for the development of our nation. I thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much, Lord Chief Justice of the Gambia, and that's the beauty. As I was taking intergenerational dialogue, you've seen it, this beautiful anecdotal reference to 1965's journey through the religious scriptures, continental legal framework, and the seminal work on Donohue and Stevenson. As a law students, indeed, we've all gone through that one, and it's quite interesting. The young people might enjoy what they call youthful exuberance, but the elderly citizens enjoy what they call in German Seniorenfreiheit. So the elderly liberty to always go beyond protocols, which is understandable, having senior citizens among us. You've made an important point, which is about our commonalities. Differences might be negative, but we have our peculiarities and commonalities to celebrate. And as Martin Luther King said, I cannot reach fulfillment without door. So it means that we need each other. Our diversity and our pluralism and our commonalities are sources of inspiration for us to rise higher. I would therefore like to acknowledge the pioneers of the initial forum in 2023 and 2024 who are with us today. Welcome, gentlemen. It is a family gathering. Good to have you here. Before proceeding, I would like to invite the Honorable Speaker of the National Assembly of the Republic of the Gambia, Fabakary Tombong Jatta, for reflections on the theme of the Jubilee. Welcome.
Your Excellency, the President of the Republic, ably represented by the Honorable Minister for Public Service, Honorable Babukar Boy, my Lord, the Chief Justice, the Chairman of the Organizing Committee, Honorable Mort Sisi, who doubles as the Chief of Staff and Minister for Presidential Affairs, Honorable Cabinet Ministers here in present, Honorable Members of the National Assembly, Chief of Defense Staff, senior government officials here and present, members of the Diplomatic and Consular Corps, leaders of political parties, distinguished panelists, representatives for the faith-based organizations, representatives from civil society, distinguished invited guests, members of the press, ladies and gentlemen, fellow Gambians. Let me first and foremost wish all of us a happy Independence Anniversary in advance. This year marks the 60th anniversary of our founding as a republic. It is a moment of deep reflection and critical assessment of our achievements as a sovereign people and the challenges confronting us in the journey to building a country that not only guarantees the general well-being of all Gambians, but also fulfills our needs and aspirations. I will extend my gratitude to His Excellency President Adama Barrow for providing the leadership that is guided by conscience, wisdom, and the placement of the will of the Gambian people above everything else. His foresight and wisdom brought us here in the same hall precisely the same time last year for the first ever national dialogue to chart a sustainable way forward for the country. As I have stated then, this is leadership that's conscious of the responsibilities charged to it by the people and is determined to fulfill the wishes and aspirations of the citizens that engage in such a broad-based dialogue on issues of national concern. Today's forum, punctuating the second national dialogue, illuminates the commitment of government to ensuring that broad-based consultations on issues of national interest becomes a permanent feature of our governance architecture. Your Excellency, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the theme under consideration, marching in solidarity for self-reliance and national development, holds profound significance, especially considering that our country is reflecting on its 60-year journey into nationhood. As we therefore dialogue among ourselves on this crucial theme, let all Gambians be reminded that democracy requires the ability of our elected representatives to exercise decision-making power, is subject to the rule of law, moderated by a constitution that emphasizes the protection of the rights and freedoms of individuals, and which places constraints on leaders and on the extent to which the will of the majority can be exercised against the rights of the minorities. It cannot be debated that this country is fortunate to be governed by a dynamic and conscious political elite that commit themselves without reservations to the service of the people by not only embarking on infrastructural projects, but also engendering and consolidating cardinal democratic and political values. This reality explains why, on a constant basis, we see our public institutions acting within the framework of a genuine representative democracy. Much more, the three arms of government are operating on the basis of separation of powers with the necessary checks and balances mechanisms. Citizens are given a choice as they retain political sovereignty and are informed of the actions of the status quo through the legislature. As the state therefore continues to provide the enabling environment for citizens to serve as ultimate guidance of their own freedom and to forge their own path towards the recognition of the inherent dignity and the equal and inalienable rights of all members of humanity, we as citizens should continue to cement our utmost loyalty to the state. If democracy is to work, we must not only participate and exercise our rights, but must also observe certain principles and rules of democratic conduct. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, marching in solidarity for self-reliance and national development also requires that we appreciate that for development to be achieved by a country, the people have to be the driving force behind it. All development undertakings must involve the people, who ought to be seen in the initiation, implementation stages of the development projects. However, it is also worth mentioning that fulfillment of all these conditions do not in any way guarantee development in the absence of unity and harmony among the people. This is because no objective, however great the aspiration might be, is attainable on the basis of individualism. Several people have to strive together if even the simplest of things is to be achieved. Building a self-reliant country requires that as Gambians, we have to break the barrier that keeps us apart politically and ethnically, and to unite in the interest of the country's developmental goals. The advancement of every Gambian, regardless of affiliation in terms of politics, religion, or tribe, has to be our utmost priority. In this regard, all other development facilities will fall in place because everybody will continue to work in unity towards the progress of the society. This fast tracks the overall development process. On the other hand, when disunity is the order of the day, the resultant effect is total negligence and societal dysfunction, which often impedes development. It is therefore important for us to come together as one, as Gambians and Africans, in the pursuit of our collective objectives. Politics is a service of representation, and as such, we should not allow it to be a dividing tool among people. The best reputation a person can make as a politician is to meaningfully participate in the development process of the society they serve. Our technocrats and administrators and all other stakeholders should also realize that we have gone very far forward, very far towards the target of our national development aspirations. They should become more focused and submerge themselves in service to the country so that collectively we can guarantee the sustainability of what has been achieved and move the country forward. Your Excellency, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, as we deliberate in this second national dialogue, I wish to reiterate that the National Assembly shall continue to uphold its mandate charged to it by the Constitution and other laws of the Gambia, and will remain committed to fulfilling its social contract with the Gambian people. We will continue to ensure that the laws we passed are geared towards boosting democracy, rule of law, transparency, peace, and stability, and to deliver social services to all Gambians without discrimination. In doing this, the National Assembly will also continue to hold the government accountable to the people of the Gambia through our oversight function to ensure that wishes and aspirations of every Gambian is attained. On that note, ladies and gentlemen, I urge all of us to be committed to the dialogue with the ultimate objective to identify challenges and provide tangible and realistic solutions to the challenges we face as a country in building resilience for national development. I thank you all.
Thank you, Honorable Fabakary Tombong Jatta, Speaker of the National Assembly of the Gambia. And as the House of Representatives representing the people, it's really encouraging that you reminded us our responsibility as sovereign. The greatest resources of every nation are its people. You can have all the human resources, natural resources at hand, but you don't have the people with smart brains to take ownership and transform all those resources. You will still be moving in a circle. And as a people, we should know who we are. As René Descartes said, cogito ergo sum. I think, therefore I am. As human beings, our senior citizens reminded of the honor given to a citizen, and that human beings, we have the mental capacity to lead our destinies. We've gone far as a nation. 60 years is double celebration. Our motherland or fatherland, or as the National Assembly national anthem say, homeland, is 60 years, and that's an achievement. From where we are coming, we are called an improbable nation. The lecturers of histories know that about. We've proven that. We've again, Ndekete, we've doubted them. The methodic doubt that René Descartes said, we've obliterated it as a nation by showing certainty that we can build, we can work together. Having the three arms of government here and all represented here, and also listening to the citizens, coming up with national dialogue, and also having measurable impact, as Dr. Barry reflected, meaning that we are moving. We should be appreciative of what we've gone for as a nation, and that will help us. And it is important that all accomplished speakers bring that to our attention. And I'm sure that our panelists today will also do justice to the team by coming up with impressive ideas of carrying the nation forward. And as I hinted, it's double celebration for us. Our principal, His Excellency the President of the Republic of Gambia, is 60. Happy birthday. Our motherland is 60. So we have to start. So if you are measuring the achievements of our country, we already have a human being as a representative of the Gambia. Mother Gambia cannot speak as a person, but we are the representative of our homeland. We can look at the biography of our principal to look at how far we've come as a nation. On that note, I would like to invite the Honorable Baboucarr Boye, Minister of Public Service, to deliver the opening statement on behalf of His Excellency President Adama Barrow.
Thank you very much. I am happy to be delegated by His Excellency the President to read his statement and represent him in this important dialogue forum. And the statement goes as follows. Honorable Speaker of the National Assembly, my Lord the Chief Justice, honorable members of Cabinet and the National Assembly, honorable Chief of Staff and Minister for the Presidency, Lord Mayors of Banjul and Kanifing Municipality, regional governors, members of the Diplomatic and Consular Corps, representatives of international organizations and development partners, political party leaders and representatives of other political parties, government officials and service chiefs, community and religious leaders, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I cordially welcome you all
to the second National Dialogue Forum, organized as part of the Diamond Jubilee Anniversary celebration of the Gambia's attainment of political independence in 1965. Your presence signals your commitment to the welfare of the nation and your belief in dialogue. In view of all that is in stake for us in the country, our attendance is nothing less than a patriotic duty. The 2024 forum triggered lively discussions, but the theme for this year, which is marching in solidarity for self-reliance and national development, is not only excitingly relevant, but also positions us to look forward more constructively to the next 40 years, when the country will celebrate its centenary anniversary. These thoughts should motivate us to begin the search for answers on what we must do urgently in the coming 4 decades to really make the Gambia a dreamland for all Gambians. The answers seem to lie in the theme. We must march together, that is, in solidarity, use our human and material resources to develop the country speedily. From a socio-political perspective, marching figuratively means working collectively, and it has both horizontal and vertical dimensions. It can come about through our structures at various levels, formal and informal. In other words, we must work collectively through our governance structures, institutions, communities, families, social groupings, and through every individual. This means that, first and foremost, we must submit to the Constitution and laws of the land. Also, we must be guided by a common vision, work towards the same destiny, be aware of the barriers to peace, security, stability, and progress to break them down, and be protective of one another. As marching physically implies movement or moving forward, so does it imply progress. In our political situation, it means preventing stagnation, regression, backwardness, and retardation. The lesson for Gambians is that we cannot afford a repetition of the bitter experience of the past. If we are to march in solidarity, we must cooperate as a nation, a people, a community, and as units of the existing legitimate structures. In whatever we do, it should be with the bigger or national picture in view. To succeed in this endeavor, we must plan together, execute our plans together, and protect the results of our labor. In fostering national solidarity, it is worth remembering that unity begins in the heart. It is nurtured and fueled by the mind and executed as a national project. The general view must take precedence over any particular issue or individual, with the awareness that it is the sum of the individuals and the particular issues that constitute the whole. With this in mind, we must prioritize the people's interests, aspirations, concerns, and welfare in all spheres of development: educational, health-related, social, political, economic, or otherwise. These are the types of attitudes, values, principles, and basic elements that generate self-reliance. I hold the view that self-reliance is not simply about taking decisions. It connotes looking inward as a nation, planning, prioritizing and taking appropriate actions based on our resources, potential, and abilities. To be self-reliant, we have to take our destiny into our own hands, respect our sovereignty, and strive for self-sufficiency in our major areas of need. In addition, we must have the capacity, capability, freedom, and choice to make decisions and act on them with timeliness. The end result of this should hinge on constructive work, building and developing structures, and securing and sustaining life and livelihood. This cannot happen in the absence of belief, confidence, and trust in and among ourselves. We must therefore develop the capacity to think insightfully, critically, and creatively, to act boldly and decisively when need be, and maintain a high degree of resilience, especially in times of difficulty. The place that dialogue has in all this cannot be negotiated or compromised. Dialogue is a democratic principle and a communication value. It is a principle that embodies involvement, participation, consultation, and discussions. Dialogue reminds us that democracy is not about the interests of the majority, but about the majority working with or on behalf of the minority in the interests of both parties. Parliaments reflect this arrangement or principle. I believe in discussing our disagreements to agree, and not stubbornly or unreasonably disagreeing to agree. The Gambia is known for its rich cultural diversity. We have a common heritage, respectable values, national traditions, and a unique identity as Gambian Africans. Preserving all this is paramount in the country, and no one can outgrow them. These characteristics inform and govern social life, which is at the core of our political relevance. Through these commonalities, we can always sort out grievances and divergent views to move on. Relating these to our structural arrangements, the three arms of government exemplify how to work together and head towards the same destiny. In like manner, the government and its institutions and the private sector, as well as civil society, need to have a similar relationship. Like the elaborate structures at the lower end of our social network, families and communities have to cooperate, collaborate, hold consultations, and dialogue between and across themselves. Among them are the precious and vulnerable women, youth, and disadvantaged groups who deserve protection, support, and empowerment for our collective good. Ladies and gentlemen, this is an interdependent world, so we cannot isolate ourselves. Self-reliance is not about isolation. We must be aware, however, of current international political trends, particularly the rise of extreme nationalism, which should ring alarm bells around the world. The implication is that, as Gambian nationals, developing the Gambia can come about only through development initiatives, the task and onus of which rest on all of us. In discharging this responsibility, let us morally hold ourselves accountable to the people and be guided by the Gambian spirit of being dutiful and supportive. We live in distinct circumstances as Gambians with a unique national identity and should think this way. Collectively, we are custodians of the land today, and our actions and achievements, as well as failures, will go down in history for judgment sooner or later. Let us not fail ourselves or our successors. In remembering this, No perceived differences should divide us. Instead, they should strengthen us as a diverse people of varied backgrounds, skills, knowledge, fortitude, perspectives, and outlook. The differences that seemingly divide us are artificial. They are byproducts of ideologies, philosophies, approaches, ambitions, or worldviews, all of which we can moderate, harmonize, and accommodate on our programs. We are blessed with shared honorable values, such as hard work, honesty, spiritual orientation, religious tolerance, and love for family, community, and nation. If these cannot bond or unite us, nothing else can. The focus of our development is obvious. We have to secure our sovereignty, diversify the economy, utilize our resources wisely, and coexist as law-abiding citizens. Ladies and gentlemen, in 2016, under my leadership, we demonstrated that we could work together in the interest of the nation. Now, the National People's Party, under my leadership, has again demonstrated that different political parties can work together in the same government in the dual interest of our parties and the people to develop this nation. This shows that there are no differences, beliefs, ideologies, philosophies, world outlook, ethnicity, educational background, or any other type of characteristic or orientation that can stop us from working in solidarity for the nation. In this spirit, I invite all political parties and Gambians to join us for national development purposes. No individual or single party can stay in power forever. Working together, we can ensure a smooth transition of government from generation to generation, without any hostility, civil war, bloodshed, or military takeover. In truth, there is no issue we cannot discuss, no circumstance that prohibits us from dialoguing, and no legal reason stopping us from living peacefully in the country we all call home. We operate through national plans, policies, projects, programs, institutions, procedures, laws, and regulations. All these are big enough to accommodate all of us, and they belong to no one, just as the nation belongs to no one. All of them are man-made. They spring from thought processes and are ideas that are liable to scrutiny and refinement. This makes it possible for every citizen to contribute to such instruments. So the way our institutions work or how our programs unfold depends entirely on us. This is a forum to discuss such national matters. To examine them, all we require is to simplify the issues under discussion, find a middle ground, and agree on the best options. As head of state, I passionately want to work with all Gambians, be they at home or in the diaspora. In the same way, as a party leader and a citizen, I extend a hand of cooperation to everyone. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the organizing committee of this forum, coordinated by the Director of Press and Public Relations in my office, deserves commendation for the magnificence of the occasion. Like the theme, the sub-themes are very well thought through, and I hope the various groups will do justice to them. I advise that we make use of the reports generated from the discussions. Unless we do so, maximum benefit would not be derived from this grand dialogue forum. I thank you all for coming and pray that we have very fruitful discussions, which we should measure by the manner in which we relate to another, tolerate one another, and work with one another after dispersing from here. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you, Honorable Babukar Boy, for delivering that excellent speech on behalf of His Excellency President Adama Barrow. Indeed, reminding us of the need to revalidate our indigenous agency as citizens, as people of values, of people of peculiarities and commonalities. We have two more activities lined up before going on for a family photo outside. We have video on independence by Bright Stars Entertainment Group, to be followed by live performance from Buddy Bunka, one of the artists in town. Volume.
1965, baby, boogie map. Soul. Story to be told. Now we free and moving, shiny like after. Celebrate on, money your land, something on, independence, no violence, peace and development. You know it, you wanna dance, and get up on a get it, on a list, on TV, on a ticket, only dig it. You fuck with your dick. You fuck me better now. You fuck me, you fuck me, you fuck me, you fuck me, for the nation, independence, celebration for the nation, independence, celebration for the nation. Everybody celebrate the film, celebration, every corner, Atopoke Bankoye Tanyato, Kayo, Lapawala. Atopoke Bankoye Tanyato.
That's beautiful. As lecturer of film studies, I'm very happy. Professionally made, well made. I like the visual, and it's made, and then the framing. Thank you so much. And we'll now move to live performance. It's in town, Badibunka. It's going to be playback. Badibunka and team. And they need this mic.
Amuta following you will confirm. Amuta, DJ. Amuta ni mole you confirm. Aywali. Animbara Gambia. Ngafolan family yoko happy independence in advance. Na alfal bijane na minister bijane. Nabane kibala siring. Wale ngamin tofo momin tofo ngafalale alnimbara ukomu dialogue labe kiring national dialogue oto min kummayata min dialogue kono min fudata suwol kono ngana dimbayal sinni nafoye mina nafati karambungol kono mbedol kono prisonol kono suwol kono alfalu min be jandim fudata kandimol londi min national dialogue la wala yatinanko nimman kamben kayroti nanu la Gambia woto fombe se kamben nga nyumuta nga ke bakilim fakilim woti kayru na waling woto wala nan kale ko alinga kamben yalwa binana barni man kamben yirwati nanola alinga dumba dimbong fitino daifa kayra yang waling fitino daifa kayra yang waling molu fitino daifa kayra yang waling ngata DJ ngata it's called Mandinko. Oh, dear Sena Mandinko. Mandinko, no Sena Mandinko. Volume, Mandinko, dear Sena Mandinko. Mandinko, no Sena Mandinko. Unku, Apunya Mandinko. Unku, Apunya Mandinko. Unku, Apunya Mandinko. Unku, Apunya Mandinko. I am a Gambiano. Volume. I am a Gambiano, no Jamaicano. I am a Gambiano, also a Mandingo, also a Badibungo, singing my camo, not the Mandingo, all I know is a Maseno, also a Nakido. Riburu alififimo kiyo andimano tibanyo andikinto ritek bomamu tiktinyo hanino bam diabso marakara jumatu sudadi yomugo machotes bolmono muchmo adura helme kumba kenge mandinga jawaro apanya mandingo diasene mandingo diasene mandingo apanya mandingo diasene mandingo diasene mandingo Apunya mandingo, apunya mandingo, apunya mandingo, apunya mandingo, momo kita orang, kita siu city munisi ulung, alayandale angku mangkini, ayedere dolati, indo kituati, kisiriti, domu manjakiti, wodomu palantati, mimi binti, punyantyo kalamulonna, minja isalong ibemin fola. Apunya mandingo, tiasene mandingo, tiasene mandingo, apunya mandingo, tiasene mandingo, tiasene mandingo, apunya mandingo,
afonyi mandinko nko afonyi mandinko nko afonyi mandinko nko mbala kamo mandinka kamo mbala kamo mandinka kamo mbali nyalla kamo mandinka kamo mandinka kamo mbala kamo mandinka kamo mbala kamo mandinka kamo mbali nyalla kamo mandinka kamo minti nyalla kamo mandinka kamo chinjaba kirisa mandinka foro mandinka foro mandinka foro na tiriman mandinka foro mandinka foro mandinka foro mandinka foro wonin jalima ku adi Aiwali Aparakasi, give me the last one. Kusulini tenten do gelanyadi. Akindini tenten fano de gelanyadi. Aiwali give me futuo. Mata. Aiwali, Honorable Speaker, Mimbara. Kaibaji Basen. Give me volume. Ala baraka jolle la ka jola na sama man jolle tiki ka jola na sama tiata kala la karela ibu tele wila jolle ka kala bi ibu ne man ku sama ponte soga ndan seobu ndan kuyobu mo fulo borom kili ba kili mai gena wala siri mai sweetie happy baby Alfa kumal denta nube ngani yakilim ya rabbi kanu kirine muna ya rabbi kanu kirine Kamiya, Yarafang, Way, Yarafang, Way, Kanawikirine, Yarafang, Yarafang, Kanawikirine, Aparakasi. Aiwali, Nala Fafana Kanyang, Nakanyang, Alabaraka. Thank you so much, Madhupunka. The beautiful reference to Mandinka is a reflection of our culture. We are all part of the Manding family of language. The Kurban Fuga or Mandinka that I refer to is a product of our dialogue. The legal framework for our constitutional law as a guarantor of peace and understanding. So at the end of the day, the Mandinka reflection, as he mentioned, all ethnic groups. It's a name for our commonality. We are all part of the Manding civilization, Manding heritage, and it's beautiful that we integrated that one. We look back from the days of Kurgan Fuga to date and celebrate it here. Thank you all. It has been a very impressive morning session with elderly intervention and also intervention from representative of the Office of the President, Minister Boy, Chief of Staff, Minister of Presidential Affairs, Cabinet Ministers, regional governors,
members of the National Dialogue Committee, our accomplished panelists, members of the civil society, and all other media, technical crew. Thank you all for taking your time to attend this opening session of National Dialogue, second National Dialogue. Now we may march towards the entrance of the gallery for the family photo. After that, we'll come back and listen to the second, to our panelists. We'll have the second, the first panelist will be here, and we'll continue discussions. So may we gather at the gallery or the entrance for the family photo. Thank you all, and thank you to our